This is best friend of the show, Monica Kubina, artist and colorist on Batman: The Adventures Continue. And you're listening to the DCAU review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Hey everybody, welcome to another bonus episode of the DCAU review. I am one of your hosts, Cal, and with me, my good friend and good brother, it's Liam. Liam, we are out here covering another issue 4 to be exact, of Batman: The Adventures Continue, as we are here in season 2, quote-unquote season 2 of Batman: The Adventures Continue, issue number 4. And we have an interesting one today as we are tackling the latest issue released earlier this week, with the title of the story being The Muscle.
That's right. And yet another issue in this second season, quote unquote, of Batman: The Adventures Continue. And we have a really fun one to talk about, and one we were talking about a little bit off the air, but one that really feels like it stepped right out of, ironically, even though this is obviously taking after the new Batman adventures as far as character designs and some of the where the characters are in their journeys, this really does feel like it could have walked out of those first 65 episodes of the original series, both in the tone and the art and visuals that we'll certainly get to, but also in the story itself.
Yeah, it's man, those guys that write for this comic, Mr. Burnett and Mr. Dini, whoever they are, they might have a future in telling Batman stories. I don't know. You should Warner Brothers should sit down and talk with them and see if they want to write some stories for animation or something.
I like that idea.
Hey, yeah, I'm throwing it out there. I'll take full credit for it if it happens. Don't worry. But yeah, this is a fun one because we get the return of some pivotal original Batman the Animated Series villains here, and we get the introduction of a brand new character as well. We get some of the character focus shifted off of the Bat team, and this ends up being a focus on almost a completely focused on the GCPD, and specifically one member of the GCPD, Renee Montoya. So we'll talk about that. We have Rupert Thorne making an appearance. We have Harvey Bullock making an appearance as well. And then we have of course the Dark Knight himself. So as you said, very much this feels like a season 1 or season 2, whatever that original 65 or whatever it was episode run of Batman the Animated Series. This could be slotted right in there, as you mentioned before we went on the air. So getting into the plot here of the book itself, we open up on a guy who's getting his butt pretty much handed to him by this brand new character that we learn also named The Muscle. So the story itself named The Muscle. The character itself simply goes by the moniker The Muscle. And he's kind of giving this guy the business. This is an issue, by the way, that features a lot of violence. Like, it's not graphic. There's not blood that's shown, but multiple gunshot wounds, lots of death, or implied death at least, and some pretty strong fisticuffs happening here, as The Muscle is living up to his name pretty much here in this the first couple pages.
Yeah, there's sort of this dramatic beatdown, and then he escapes from this. They're on a boat, and he blows it up, so there's truly no trace. And we get an introduction to a mysterious man who apparently hired this Muscle, who was collecting some evidence for him. He mentions that he is a former public official in Gotham, and that he mentions with the recent death, quote unquote, of Mayor Hill, that it might be time for him to return to public office, but that he needed to tie up some loose ends. And the Muscle makes it pretty clear that he doesn't really care why anyone hires him. He's just there to do his job and get paid, and even pulls a very Batman-esque disappearing act on the gentleman in question.
Yeah, which led me to initially believe that perhaps that this would be revealed to potentially be Jason Todd, or perhaps another one of the Bat team members in disguise, maybe the returning Jean-Paul Valley as Azrael, perhaps taking a dark turn. But no, this is a completely new character from what we can tell here. His true identity never quite released, but we can definitely tell that he's not a general team member that we're aware of here, anybody specifically that we might know. But Batman then it flashes across town, across Gotham, and Batman begins narrating the issue as he begins talking about Renee Montoya and the GCPD. Renee Montoya looking straight out of a new Batman Adventures episode here, and complete in her detective gear, and she's about to lead this sting operation into a criminal underbelly in this metalworks factory, or this metalworks section of town that's Batman mentions as being torn down, which I'm not sure is a direct reference to perhaps Gotham sort of undergoing this reconstruction or deconstruction. Perhaps leading to what we would eventually see in Batman Beyond, and tearing down a lot of the old Gotham to build the new Gotham on top of it. Could be a direct reference, could just be, coincidence and just mentioning of tearing down of old buildings. Not sure, not directly related, not clear there. But so Renee Montoya is leading this sting that does involve the aforementioned Harvey Bullock, as well as a team of GCPD officers, and they are stationed there around this chemical factory that we learned very quickly. It looks like I guess it's a drug mill, actually. They're producing something illegal there that contains a lot of chemicals, and they're about to do this bust. And we learned through some dialogue from two of the gangsters that are stationed there that it's actually connected directly to Rupert Thorne. So we get a returning villain, as we mentioned, from that original Batman the Animated Series. Also, of course, in the Batwoman movie, we have the returning Rupert Thorne. So Rupert Thorne makes an appearance in name, and then later on in physical presence. But this bust from the police sort of going actually according to plan for a change, as they seem to handle things pretty well. And then the two lieutenants in Thorne's empire begin to escape. Batman shows up and is able to stop them. And Renee Montoya appears that maybe her opinion of Batman has shifted a little bit here, because as far as what I can remember on the show, I don't ever remember her thinking of Batman in a poor light, but we have sort of this dynamic that sets up the rest of the issue. Renee is no longer quite fond of Batman. She and Batman have this dialogue after he stops these two guys, that she understands he has a place in stopping the maniacal clowns and mentally ill and those that are set out to destroy the city in that form and fashion. But the rank and file criminals that Batman stops, that there's still duty that goes beyond that sort of punching and kicking, and that it goes beyond in the prosecuting and the testifying and stuff that Batman, as she shows, throws shade at him, doesn't quite ever participate in. So it's interesting that this dynamic seems to have changed at some point between her opinion of Batman and maybe not being as favorable as it once was.
Yeah, we don't really get many details on that. We've certainly talked about that off the air at the very least. There's one episode in the original animated series that we covered way back there in the archives, I believe back in our fifth or sixth episode, that being P.O.V. And that one sort of focuses on Montoya and Bullock, as well as another rookie cop, and sort of all showing their different sides and their different opinions of Batman and how they see him. And in that episode, Montoya and Batman sort of work together to save the day at the end, and it's seemingly they part on good terms. But yeah, sometime between then and I guess the end of the original series and when she was promoted to detective, it does appear that her opinions on at least what Batman's role should be has sort of soured a little bit, as we see her sort of, as you mentioned, sort of talking down to him and telling him that he's, that he basically he doesn't really ever help clean up the mess that sometimes he himself is responsible for making, and that conversation sort of interrupted as the Muscle appears to about to be to take Montoya out with a sniper rifle, but Bullock actually is the one who makes the save there, who I guess notices the reflection from the scope or something and is able to see him, and then Batman and Montoya sort of spring into action, and we get a fight between Batman and this mysterious muscle, and we figure out that no, that's really not just a nickname, as he's shown to have some sort of a superhuman strength, it appears, and he kind of takes off Batman and nearly gets rid of Montoya, but is sort of forced to retreat as they work together to run him off. And that brings us into, as you mentioned, Cal, the returning Rupert Thorne, who is very upset to see that not only is she still alive, but she's now getting a commendation as a result of her busting this operation that Thorne had going. And the muscle assures him that she will be dead very quickly, and that cuts us down to some sort of to an event where Montoya is receiving this commendation, and we do get a bit of a cameo there from the mayor's son, Hamilton Hill Jr., as he has I guess in the meantime, before this upcoming mayoral election that is alluded to, he is sort of filling in for his father at the time being, as far as pinning the medals on those deserving, at least in the meantime. And we get to see Montoya give a little bit of a speech and talks about much of what she was talking to Batman about earlier, is that the team effort and the amount of work that goes into her job, and what needs to be done. And we also get the introduction, I think, for the first time in this continuity, we do get the confirmation that she is, much like her comic counterpart, is a lesbian. We introduce her significant other in this episode, and she and her significant other and Bruce Wayne get to talking a little bit about continuing that discussion about Renee's distaste for Batman.
Yeah, it's interesting. Bruce has decided that he's going to help keep an eye on Renee, because he feels like since the muscle was unsuccessful initially in taking care of Renee, that he's going to come back, certainly not being satisfied with failing in his mission. So he imagines he's offered to give Renee, her significant other, a ride back from this event. And as you mentioned, there's some amusing dialogue that's had by the three of them in the car as Alfred is driving. And what is her significant other's name? It's listed here.
Gloria.
Okay. And Gloria, who is Renee's wife or girlfriend, not sure. It's not clearly defined what their relationship is. She's not wearing a ring, so perhaps girlfriend. Is actually imploring Renee to potentially go a little bit lighter on Batman, and they're interrupted immediately by this truck sideswiping them, and there's a shooting that occurs into the car right after this. The door is ripped off of the limousine that they're riding in, and the muscle is here. He's going to take Renee out at this point. Bruce has no time to change into his Batman costume, but begins to step in between both the muscle and Renee, and actually ends up getting shot in his shoulder and ends up suffering a concussion, wakes up in the hospital sort of unaware of what exactly happened, but sees that Renee, he actually gave Renee Montoya enough time for her to return fire to the muscle and scare him off. Bruce asks about Gloria and making sure that she's okay, and we see a cut scene where Renee says that she's currently being watched by two officers to keep her safe. But wouldn't you know it, in true GCPD fashion, those bumbling fools unfortunately get knocked out by the muscle, and Gloria is taken captive and is being held by the muscle, and obviously setting up a trap to finish off Renee Montoya after this. And she excuses herself in the middle of a conversation with Bruce, and Bruce is immediately suspect that something is up, because she leaves by herself. She takes one of the cop cars, and she was sort of acting odd after she gets this phone call. So Batman, or Bruce, decides, hey, it's time to leave the hospital, much to Alfred's chagrin, who has done nothing but treat him like the son that he is to him, and implore him to listen to his doctor's orders in true Alfred fashion. But Bruce, in true Bruce fashion, decides, yeah, that's not gonna fly. I got a jet. So Bruce is actually is driven back to the Batcave in the Lamborghini that Alfred brought there, and as he's getting ready, and he has a GPS tracker on Renee, and sees that she's sort of just driving around in circles in an attempt to lose anybody that might be tailing her, or to give the appearance that everything is okay. But Bruce knows otherwise, and Alfred begins to wonder if Batman is going to go meet up with Montoya and hope to intercept the muscle, despite the fact that he has this brace on his arm that looks a little bit, could be similar to the brace and function that he actually uses in the comic adaptation of the Batman Beyond Rebirth comic. There's sort of this prologue that happens in Batman Beyond Rebirth, in the comic version at least, that sort of gives you an idea of Batman and the technology that he was introducing, and before he actually built the Beyond suit. So something that looks very similar. It's this brace that is sort of hydraulically powered, perhaps, or definitely has some technology mixed in with it, but he prevents him from driving. So Bruce informs Alfred that if he had fun driving the Lamborghini, wait till he gets behind the wheel of the Batmobile. So we get some comedy that occurs after that, as Alfred is driving the Batmobile, and Renee ends up showing up to the hideout where the muscle is located. And wouldn't you know it, he picked a fitness center, the Muscle's own fitness center, where he showed up. So Renee meets up with him as Batman and Alfred drive in pursuit of her, and she's well aware that it's a trap, and the Muscle begins to set the trap and attempt to do away with Renee. But wouldn't you know it, she's got a few tricks up her sleeve that are reminiscent of the Dark Knight himself.
That's right. That sort of leads us into our climactic battle. Is she does take a shot from the Muscle, but it is saved by a bulletproof vest and a badge that prevent her from being too badly injured, and that gives Batman time to spring into action, and he and the Muscle have another sort of brief fight. It's clear, especially due to Batman being injured, that he's not really a match for the Muscle at this stage. But thankfully, he is. It's sort of, again, a team effort there, as the Muscle begins to run at Batman, holding actually a big dumbbell over his head, and is shot in both arms by Renee, and drops the weight right on his head, and that's enough to knock him unconscious. And we get our happy ending as Renee and Gloria are reunited. And as we see on the last page, Rupert Thorne's been arrested, though doubtful that will stick for too much longer. And we get a little bit more of we get a really, it's right out of the 60s Batman, or even the George Reeves Superman show or something, as they're sort of talking about Batman, and oh, thank God Batman was there, and it's a shame he wasn't there to stop Bruce from getting shot earlier. And Alfred is there to remind them that Batman can't be everywhere now, can he? And we get a very fourth wall sort of a wink and a nod there to end our issue. But as we said at the top of the show here, this is so much fun. It's great to see a character like Montoya, who obviously has been expanded on by now. She's actually been used in, she was in a live action movie, in the Birds of Prey movie. She's been, expanded on the comics, actually became an out and out superhero herself. She became the second person to call herself the Question at one point in a really celebrated run of comics that really is phenomenal and worth going out of your way if you've never read it. But it's really cool to see this version. Of course, Montoya originated in this animated series, and it's cool to see her get some shine, and to see her and Batman team up, and just to have this sort of completely contained sort of mystery plot, not even necessarily a mystery, but just this suspenseful thing where we know there's this hitman who is not only capable, but he's physically stronger than Batman, and Batman's injured. So it can't just be a one-man show here. And it's, an example of Batman working with a cop. This is sort of a chance for Montoya to have her own sort of a bullet for Bullock type adventure, although maybe less comedic than that one. But it's cool to see Batman teamed up with like another non-Gordon cop here in Gotham City.
Yeah, and the only thing I didn't necessarily care for although there is plenty of comedy in that last scene, is there's plenty of weightlifting puns. The Muscle is a big fan of talking about how it's his workout day and how he always appreciates an extra workout as he has to pick up some extra weights and all this stuff. So there's certainly some fun to be had there, but it almost feels like for whatever reason, Mr. Dini, Mr. Burnett decided to take that sort of Harvey Bullock persona and add it to Montoya as this character that doesn't trust Batman and that doesn't want Batman around, and that he's poking his nose into police business. And we don't really have a reason why she kind of went from that character that we saw in P.O.V, where she wasn't necessarily endorsing Batman, but certainly saw him as a hero helping. And that was a standard beat cop moment. That wasn't a Joker. That wasn't a Riddler or a Two-Face. That was a standard beat cop moment that she worked with him on. So it would be interesting to find out if there was something, perhaps expanded on later, or maybe could have been included in this issue that would have better explained why all of a sudden she has this distrust for Batman. Was there maybe, it could just be years of being in the city. And it's sort of alluded to, I guess, with the idea that the cops are sort of underappreciated, and at least the good cops, I believe it's Rupert Thorne talks about it in the middle of the issue, that the reason why she is a thorn, pun intended, in his side is because that she can't be bought like a lot of cops. So maybe it's, just a general callousness from her of being or becoming jaded, that, that the cops are just never given their due, and that all is talked about is the negativity that comes from the cops that are bought off or what have you. And Batman is a glory hog because of that. So it's weird because, again, that feels very much like Harvey Bullock as opposed to Montoya. But I do appreciate the fact that they went with a story about her, a character that we talked about that was, as you mentioned, was originated here and certainly I think was well deserving of an expansion, especially that she wasn't really used a whole lot in the new Batman adventures. She made more appearances, I think, in the original Batman animated series. So and this is a story, again, this feels like there's certainly some of the aspects of the main storyline going on in the background here, as we have this Emerson Mayfield who hires the Muscle, is also the same person that is that announces at the end of the issue that he's going to be running for mayor, and as we know, plays into the remainder of the issues that we have coming up here. But yeah, very, very interesting that, that they went with that direction with this character, but I love that it feels like it could fit into that original run of episodes. It's just, it's written really well. I love the introduction of a new character. A lot of times I think the expectation was that this character, who is this mysterious character? That was written all over the solicits for this issue. So wondering, okay, who's this going to turn out to be? Well, it turns out to be just a new character. And Paul Dini has a pretty good track record of introducing, new characters into Batman lore. So I love it when he gets the opportunity to introduce a new character or two as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I liked that too. Cause the whole time you're looking at it and you're like, and we'll certainly get to that in voice and not voice acting in the art section in a moment here. But most of the issue, the Muscle is in shadow and is wearing sort of a full face mask, and then later on we see sort of the just the bottom half of his face. He's sort of wearing I guess like a Blue Beetle style mask, where it's sort of the stocking cap over the head and the eyes, and then just sort of the face coming coming out, and all we really know about him is that he appears to be an African American man, but it's not revealed that he's actually, you know, Bronze Tiger or somebody. Like, it's not, they don't try to sort of force it to be some other character from DC Comics lore, and nor does it need to be. I think it totally makes sense that there would be this new, and there's plenty of metahumans and bang babies out there that could just be any number of people that gets that has that sort of basic strong guy power set. And yeah, but I love that there's a new character here, completely new, and as we'll get to in the art section, a really sleek and striking design to go with it.
Yeah, I agree completely. So the plot points we'll have to follow up on, obviously, this Emerson Mayfield and what his role is going to be. Is he going to get tied in, you think, to the Court of Owls? It seems like things will point to that, especially based on some of the solicits for the upcoming issues here. He's involved with Old Gotham. Is it going to be Batman has to support Hamilton Hill Jr. in a weird sense, and he's going to protect him from, you know, Hamilton Hill Sr.'s role in this, and perhaps Mayfield will just be a puppet, you know, for all of this. I'm not sure, but it feels like there's something that's going to be tied back to that Court of Owls, with him being a supposed established character in this, you know, in Gotham's past, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, I definitely think there's something to that dialogue at the start when this Mayfield character is talking about how Hamilton Hill's death has sort of paved the way for him to return to his seat of power in Gotham City. And that could also have a double meaning, not just in being the public face as the mayor, but perhaps he's also involved in this Court of Owls, and is maybe even looking to, you know, usurp Hamilton Hill as the leader of that group as well. So yeah, I definitely seems like there's that idea of there's this power vacuum with Mayor Hill's death or apparent death, and that this Mayfield character is sort of gunning for that top spot.
Yeah, I agree completely. All right, Liam. Well, let's save the rest of our speculation for the end of the issue, I suppose, or the end of the episode. But I think it's about time we talked about just how absolutely gorgeous this entire comic book is. So we talked last issue, Ty Templeton, who is still being a warrior and battling his health problems, and we're still cheering him on and rooting for him. So we talked about him having to step down, and then we had Rick Burchett or Burkett, however you pronounce Mr. Burkett's last name. I apologize, whichever way that is. He took over art duties for last comic for issue 3. Now we're at issue 4, and it's interesting because originally Mr. Burchett was named as the artist for the comic, but then somewhere in the middle of, I would say, early to mid-September, perhaps right around the time where we were kind of expecting issue 4 to be released, it was announced that he was going to be replaced by a different artist, being Mr. Jordan Gibson, a relatively unknown artist, I would say, at least in the DCAU world. But man, I think it's safe to say that Jordan Gibson was born to draw this comic.
Yeah, they're really incredible, and I definitely recommend following Jordan on social media. He's been very clear about his process, not only giving little art previews, but he also created a little title card sequence to go with this episode that has the credits rolling like you would see at the start of an episode of the animated series. You can tell he talked about that this was a really special treat for him. He was actually originally known as the variant cover artist for this issue. It's an incredible cover with Bruce standing in the cave holding the mask in his hand, and we sort of see in the background where his shadow is, we see a young Bruce in his gray ghost outfit with a gray ghost poster behind him. It's just incredibly striking, and I remember ourselves and I think everyone else when that image first came out, just being so impressed and so in awe of that as a cover. And then when we found out that Jordan, that they would be doing the interiors as well, and we started to see these little snippets from Jordan's account and from of course best friend of the show Monica Kubina's Instagram account. It was very clear very quickly that Jordan is the perfect person to be drawing this book, especially for this type of story. It's very, again, it has that sort of gritty film noir feeling, the way that a lot of those early episodes, there's a lot of black. A lot of this is just, a lot of heavily in shadow stuff, not just Batman, but even, from the very first panel, we see the bright blood red sky of Gotham City and sort of the city in the background, and then just sort of the silhouette of the ship floating in the harbor. And then again, for a lot of the issue, the muscle is sort of encased in the shadows, very much sort of this anti-Batman, and really the only things you make out are sort of these little red accents on his suit and then these bright glowing red eyes that he has. It's just almost every page of this is just very striking, and especially I think the use of shadow, both in the inking, the way it was drawn, and then of course Monica's colors on top of that. Just what a visual treat this is.
My goodness, yeah. I like, go buy yourself a copy. Like go buy yourself a copy if you can find the alternate cover by Jordan. Go pick that up. He also has released lots of alternate cover ideas that he did for that piece, that are just as beautiful, just as striking, just like probably deserve to be released as posters or something. Like, you can tell that there's a innate love for this series, and he's very open about his love for Batman the Animated Series. He talked about how, what a dream come true it was for Jordan to be able to do this, to be able to draw this specific comic book. So, it just super cool that happens. that they love this show and was influenced by it so much, poured all that love into the cover, and then gets the opportunity to actually draw the issue. And as you mentioned, it from the get-go, the opening panel, Monica released several of these panels actually on her Instagram, which you can check out at monica.kubina. But man, like, the opening shot is this boat sailing across the Gotham harbor, and you get the blood red sky behind it, giant moon. You get the noir Gotham City on the left-hand side. It looks like it was lifted from an episode of the new Batman Adventures, but it's also perfectly meshed with that original Batman the Animated Series noir style. So it's almost like a perfect hybrid between the two of them. And as you mentioned, from the deep dark shadows that cover a lot of the issue, obviously the Muscle, this mysterious character, is in shadow for the majority of the first several pages that you see him. That meshed with, Monica went with in those darker, heavier shadowed panels, she went with brighter colors a lot of times, which really makes the shadows seem deeper and darker, and like they're coming through, and maybe it's the moonlight that's really allowing these characters to be seen at this time. We get the blood red sky of Gotham come through. Of course, we mentioned, the shadow work that she does, or that was done for the scenes with Montoya. There's a really interesting panel here when we first see Montoya. There's a shot of her standing holding her gun, and Batman is standing over her shoulder, and then we get a shot of Batman standing on this rooftop. And if you zoom in, if you have the digital copy, or maybe if you have the physical copy, get a magnifying glass, but if you look way in the back over Batman's shoulder, you can see these two little red dots up in the corner, which signify the Muscle standing there. And then the very next panel is the Muscle standing there holding this gun. And I thought, man, what an attention to detail. Like, you did not have to put these two tiny red dots in there. But sure enough, of course, Monica and Jordan ended up doing that. And I think that the rest of the issue, there's lots of, police action with, doors being kicked down, perps running away, Batman swinging with a classic Batman swinging pose with his legs out and his sort of hands off to the side, holding this rope as he swings down the stairs and kicks these two bad guys down the stairs. The shot from the scope inside of the Muscle's gun as he gets Renee Montoya right in his crosshairs, I think is really great. You get a lot of expression out of Harvey Bullock. You can hear, you can hear Robert Costanza's voice coming out of him right there, screaming. There's a shooter right there. Like you can hear it as you're reading through this, and it's just such a visual treat here. So many individual panels that are great, and it's interesting because you mentioned we have a brand new character here that. So there's lots of fun that's had in designing this character itself. He's clearly, literally a giant muscly guy, but has a couple different looks here. He almost in one scene looks to have sort of like a militaristic look to him with a helmet and almost a skull-like Punisher face mask that comes down over his face with these blood red eyes, as we already mentioned. And then the scene where he's talking face to or over the web with Rupert Thorne. He's the bottom part of the face mask is off, and then lots more shadow in that final scene in taking place in the gym, and lots of tricks that both Renee Montoya pull, and then there's some real strong emotion that comes out in various different shots too, of terror, and certainly the Muscle getting his arms kind of blown through by these two bullets and dropping this weight on his head. He kind of gets a classic cartoon, almost cross-eyed look with the weight dropping on his head. But man, I think I could look at these panels all day, every day for the rest of my life and not grow tired of them. It's just, I think if Ty and Monica are the dynamic duo, I think it's safe to say that Ty and Jordan, or that it's safe to say that Monica and Jordan are the world's finest, right?
I love that. Yes, they are tremendous, and they work so well together. Some of the shots, I think, in that whole final sequence, it takes place as Renee is exiting the hospital after she gets the message from the Muscle that Gloria has been kidnapped. It's raining, and it's so like it's dark. And I was actually looking at one of the captions that Monica put on her Instagram for one of the posts, and she mentioned that it's dark but not muddy, and I really liked that because everything else is it's very stark. And I think that is a thing. Just because you have a darker color palette does not mean it needs to be sort of muted and not striking. You mentioned how the brighter colors really pop, especially against those darker backgrounds. But yeah, even just some of the simple shots of Renee in the police car driving and the rains beating down, or or the Batmobile sort of zipping down the highway as Alfred's driving is. Again, some of those faces, and even some of the quieter moments, like when Gloria's congratulating Renee after giving her speech, and then the end when they're sort of reunited, sort of the more tender moments, the romance moments there, like it's all quite sweet and loving, and I really love that as great as the action looked, as you mentioned, there's the moment where the room is sort of filled up with smoke and he's about to seemingly take a shot at Gloria, and Batman comes swinging in and kicks him in the back, and it's all just like foggy, and you see the silhouette of the Muscle with those red eyes, and you can see his teeth, and then you see Batman swinging in, and sort of amidst the smoke you can make out the outline of his cowl and his eyes and a little bit of his utility belt, and it's just so dramatic, and like we keep saying, it's right out of an episode of, especially those early animated series episodes, from that first season when they were drawing the shows on the backgrounds on black paper, and anything black could kind of really seep into those backgrounds. That's really what this felt like to me. And that's not to say you don't have those bombastic moments, like when Batman throws the exploding batarang at the weight rack, and you get this big burst of orange, and the dramatic boom from Josh Reed, our letterer, as well. Like that's there's really just great work, and I think what really stuck out to me is it's as great as the action is. Some of those quieter moments, just driving in the rain, or the affection shown between Batman and Alfred talking in the Batcave, and then Alfred gets tossed the little bat key fob. And when he's informed that he's going to be driving the Batmobile, and sort of the look of panic on his face as he's driving through Gotham, like it's just a really all around super fun and super dramatic and epic, and still time for those lighter and sweeter moments as well. So just an A++ for Jordan Gibson, the artist, for best friend of the show Monica as the colorist, and again for Josh Reed as the letterer here. Lots of great big sound effects in those moments where you need them, like when the muscle is getting shot through both of his arms and stuff like that. Yeah. So and some of the big explosions and stuff that we see throughout the issue. So yeah, just a really just everybody on their A game here.
Yeah, it's hard not to love this. I mean, we generally love the art. I think last month the art felt like a little bit of a letdown. There was some, it felt like maybe it was a little bit rushed, or, there was some stuff that was left undone, or perhaps Mr. Burchett's style has just changed more than it has in the last couple of years, more so than it was back when he was doing the Batman adventures. But this felt certainly more right at home. I think my favorite panels are the ones in the rain between there's a shot of the police car driving in the rain. There's actually two different ones of the GCPD police car that Renee is driving through the rain. There's another beautiful shot of the Batmobile coming through the rain as Alfred is driving it. And then after Renee has faked out the muscle and thrown this practice dummy down, and he shoots it. Batman finally swoops in, and there's this shot of all shadow on the muscle's face with just his shoulders sort of in lighting, and then Batman and the classic, just the white lenses showing, and a little bit of back shadow coming through there, but a sweeping sort of effect put over the page itself that makes it look like it's moving. The characters are moving and gives you that swooping effect. Just an absolutely beautiful panel there. Do you have a standout panel, something that you loved other than the ones you already mentioned, or maybe even one of the ones you already did mention?
Well, yeah, definitely those ones that we've now both talked about of Batman swooping in the smoke and stuff. But just that first panel is, the sort of sequence of panels as Batman arrives at the docks. You sort of see him just see the silhouette against the red sky with the cape flayed out, and then we see him looking through binoculars. We see a shot of him looking down at Montoya and the rest of the cops, and there's this great 3-panel sort of sequential panel shot where it's close up of Montoya, and you see Batman sort of on the building behind her looking, and then we get a close up of Batman looking down on her, and we see, if you look in the background, you can see some red eyes, and then it sort of for lack of a better term, zooms out further to see that the muscle is watching Batman watching Montoya, and I was like, that's such a great 3-panel sequence there. And again, it's very, it's so dramatic and sleek, in that everybody's in the shadows and sort of slinking behind each other. There's some really, really great stuff done there. And yeah, I think that's a shot. And like I said, I really appreciated those quieter moments with Renee getting the commendation, and even that opening scene as the muscle is talking to this Mayfield character, and again, still mostly in the shadow as they're standing on the docks and everything. It's just, everything's really seeped into that noir style that, it always sort of fits a Batman book, I think, almost no matter what the story is, but it especially fits this story where it's sort of this very grounded take on Batman and this one of the last honest cops in Gotham City, and they're sort of on the defense, sort of on their heels the whole time. And I think that the noir feel to the whole issue really adds to that story. So that's always something that is going to get an extra thumbs up from us. Is not only is the art great, but it better enhances the story that the writers are telling. So that's really all you can ask for. Absolutely.
All right, Liam, any speculation for where this is going? Do we finally get the Owls returning next month? Do you feel like, I know we've seen a couple of panels that Monica has teased for next month's issue, and it appears that we are at least getting a partial flashback, as we've seen. So artist Rick Burchett, it will again be returning, it looks like, to do issue number 5. So unfortunately, we must bid Jordan adieu for now, but hopefully Jordan Gibson will return for more work later if Mr. Templeton himself is not able to return for the series during this season. But it looks like we'll at least have a flashback of some kind, because we get Batman in his classic animated series with the yellow oval around the bat. So potentially, I guess we might get some more information about this Mayfield character, maybe tying in with some additional characters that have already been reintroduced this season. Maybe the Vreelands or something. Maybe his original interactions with Hamilton Hill Sr. If we're doing a power struggle type idea here with the Court of Owls, or any speculation at all where you think this might be headed?
Yeah, so as you said, we know that next month will be some sort of flashback to the early days of Batman the Animated Series. We've seen the original costume on display there, as well as Jim Gordon's cowlick. So we know that it will be set beyond. I believe Paul Dini also shared some uncolored artwork from Mr. Burchett showing Batgirl and Robin in the issue. So it does appear that Bruce will be telling that story to them. And the little next box that we get at the bottom of the last panel just says the Mayhem campaign begins. And Cal, speaking of the name Mayhem, I don't know, I can't remember if we discussed this at all on last month's bonus episode, or I think we discussed a little bit on social media, but there is a character named Mayhem that we know was active in Gotham City sometime prior to Batman Beyond starting. Do we think this maybe ties in? Is this Pa Mayhem?
I mean, the speculation is there. I think that it would make sense. However, based on what we've witnessed thus far versus the first 2 seasons of this comic book so far, we know that Mr. Dini and Mr. Burnett don't necessarily like to tie in a lot of future stuff into this comic. So, would they go that far to potentially allude to a character that's later brought into the DCAU through Batman Beyond? Perhaps this would be the opportunity. We know that in the episode Egg Baby, which we actually just recently covered, there is Ma Mayhem. Her husband is alluded to, and then Bruce tells a story that they ran roughshod over Gotham for a period of time with a huge crime wave. So is it possible that they would use this opportunity to draw in that character, the husband of Ma Mayhem, who we've dubbed Pa Mayhem, give them the opportunity to explore that character that was referenced but never shown? Very well could be, or it could just be a coincidence. But I'll cross my fingers and toes and say that let's tie this bad boy into a future storyline here. Let's box ourselves into a corner here and throw the continuity out the window, shall we?
Well, yeah, and we've talked about this several times now, but both Alan Burnett and Paul Dini have talked about how they approached this comic was a sort of a what if there was another season of those new Batman adventures and they didn't go right into Beyond. So I don't necessarily know that, and we've certainly seen that with some of the things they've done with this, and with sort of the fast and loose connections this has to the Justice League series, that they weren't necessarily super worried about connecting it directly and making it all fit neatly, so much as this is maybe for them just a fun what if. And like we said, we leave it to other folks. If you want to force this into direct canon with the DCAU shows, you're welcome to try. Or if you want to say, confidently this is an alternate universe, you're welcome to do that as well. We're not here to tell you how to enjoy this, but either way, whether or not it's perfectly in canon or not, hey, more issues like this. You can make as many issues with this. I don't care how many continuity errors you make. Like if we get more stories like the one we got here today, I'm all for it.
Amen to that. Completely agree with you. All right, Liam. Well, that will wrap us up for this month's, this edition of this month's bonus episode. Don't forget, just a few short weeks, we'll be covering our next bonus episode of the Justice League Infinity comic book, which is covering what would have happened post Justice League Unlimited. So lots of good stuff happening there. Lots of a little bit more attention paid, it seems, by Mr. James Tucker and J.M. DeMatteis, who are both former DCAU veterans and guys that wrote Justice League Unlimited and Justice League. So they've done a lot of fan service as far as the continuity is concerned. So lots of great stuff happening over there. So check those out. Pick up these comics and the Batman the Animated or Batman the Adventures Continue comics, as well as the Justice League Infinity comics at your local comic shop or on digital platforms, wherever you get your comics. Liam, excited to talk more about this, see where this storyline is going, and hopefully enjoy more beautiful artwork next month. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
We'll talk to you on the next episode of the DCAU Review.
Bye-bye.